Every organization's leader wants to talk about AI. It's the biggest buzzword in a generation. But I'm going to tell you the uncomfortable truth. Your current approach to data is making a real AI strategy impossible. And worse, it's setting you up for a catastrophic loss of control. Right now, your CIO or your CISO is probably saying no to a lot of AI ideas. And they're absolutely right to do so. They're not blocking innovation. They're protecting the organization from a mess it is not prepared to handle. Your CISO is right to say no to AI. Here's why. So what's the worst that can happen if you just buy a few AI-powered tools and hope for the best? The failure isn't that the AI doesn't work. The failure is that it does work, but in a way that you don't control. It's finding out that your most sensitive customer and operational data was used to train your vendor's global AI model, and you gave them permission in the fine print. And that's just you giving permission to a SaaS vendor that you spent a lot of money with and you moved all of your systems to. When you have people in your organization entering personally identifiable information into free versions of ChatGPT, it's a bigger problem. It's also getting a public records request asking you to explain how an AI made a decision that affected a citizen and realizing you have no audit trail because it's all happening in the black box. The catastrophic failure is a slow, silent transfer of your most valuable asset, your data, to a third party, leaving you with all of the risk and none of the long-term rewards. Today, we're going to talk about how to prevent that by building a strategy based on a simple, powerful idea: data sovereignty. Let's start with the story that I see happening right now. It's the story of the AI-ready trap. A well-run county, let's call them County A, was looking to modernize its systems. They were approached by a vendor with a very slick cloud-based platform that was marketed as being AI-powered and AI-ready. Sounds perfect. The demos were amazing. It promised to help them analyze financial data, predict budget shortfalls, and improve citizen services. So they signed the contract. A year into the implementation, the county's new CIO started asking some hard questions. He asked the vendors team, where physically is our data being stored? And what is your policy on using our data for model training your LLMs? The answer he got back was buried in the terms of service. The data was stored in a multi-tenant cloud environment, and a contract granted the vendor the right to use anonymized, aggregated data to improve their services, which is corporate speak for we're going to train our global AI models. So the CIO realized this organization was in a trap. They were actively sending their valuable taxpayer-funded data to a private company, which was then using that data to build a smarter product that would then sell back to their governments, to other governments, or to them. So the county was paying to improve the vendor's competitive advantage while funding their product development. So the CIO immediately put a halt to any further AI initiatives. The AI-ready platform was now on lockdown. The promise of innovation was dead on arrival because the foundational contract had given away the most important thing: control. They had lost their data sovereignty. The moral of the story is brutally simple. You cannot have a real AI strategy without a data sovereignty strategy. They're the same thing. So before you sign any contract for a platform that claims to be AI ready, you must have a contractual framework that answers 4 questions. First one is data residency. Where's your data physically living? We must have the right to specify the cloud region or on-premise location. Model training rights. Is our data used to train any AI models that are not for our exclusive use? Exclusive use. The answer must be an unambiguous no. Third is data portability. What's the process and cost to extract all of our data, including metadata configurations, in a non-proprietary format if we choose to terminate this contract? Auditability and explainability. What tools are provided to audit AI-driven recommendations and decisions and explain them to a non-technical audience, like a citizen or a legislator? These are not technical nice-to-haves. They're non-negotiable business requirements for any public sector organization in this century. The second story is about why it's so hard to get to a yes on AI, and it goes back to the challenge of legacy data. We worked with a large county in the Northeast that was decommissioning a 25-year-old SAP system. This is a common story, by the way. They had terabytes of historical financial, HR, operational data that had to be extracted before the old system was turned off. Their initial plan was what most organizations do: a technical lift and shift to get the data into new on-premise servers. Now, while this was happening, the county executive was excited about AI. He was asking the new CIO, hey, can we use AI to analyze our spending trends? Can we build a chatbot for employees to ask HR questions? The CIO had to say no to every single idea, not because he wasn't innovative, but because he understood the reality of their situation. He told the executive, we have a data swamp. I can't in good conscience point an AI at a data set that has no governance, no classification, no clear retention rules. The risk is immense. And he was right. How could you train an HR chatbot when you don't have a clear map of which employee data is sensitive or contains PII? How could you analyze financial trends when 2 decades of data is full of inconsistencies and undefined fields? The blanket no was the only responsible answer. The organization was paralyzed by its own data. So, how did they get to yes? They adopted a strategy of governance before platform. Instead of just doing a technical extraction, they ran a parallel strategic program. This is the exact methodology we champion. First, they did legacy data discovery. They interviewed every department and built a catalog of what data they had and who actually needed it for the job. Now, this is different from just running a scan to see what data lives where. This is a personal touch. You're talking to the directors, the end users to see, yeah, we're migrating from the old system to the new system, but what kind of things do you still need from the older system? Because we're only migrating 2 to 3 years of data. Second, they implemented records retention and governance. They mapped the complex state retention rules to their actual data. This allowed them to legally and confidentially dispose of redundant, obsolete, and trivial information. What was left was then the data that truly mattered. Third, they established an architecture based on open formats, ensuring that the data was stored in a way that they controlled, ready for any future analytics or AI tool that's not dependent on the ERP vendor. Third, they established an architecture based on open formats, ensuring that the data was stored in a way that they controlled, ready for any future analytics or AI tool, not just the one they have with their ERP vendor. So by the end of this process, they didn't just have a server full of old data, they had a clean, catalog, governed data asset. The swamp had been drained. And with that foundation in place, the CIO could finally go back to the county executive and start saying yes. And that leads to the final positive story, the story of the first small successful yes. With their new governed data asset, the county didn't try to boil the ocean. They didn't announce a massive risky AI project. They looked for low-hanging fruit, a cautious, low-risk, high-impact use case that would solve a real problem and build trust in the technology. They found one in their HR department. Like most organizations, they had hundreds of pages of policies and procedures. Finding a specific answer about leave policy or travel reimbursement was a manual, time-consuming process. So using their new data framework, they knew exactly which documents were current, which were approved, and which contained no PII. So they built a simple, secure, internal-only AI-powered search tool for HR staff. It was a chatbot that could only read from the approved set of documents. It couldn't write data. It couldn't access employee records. Its blast radius was tiny. The result was transformative. It saved the HR team hundreds of hours a month. It was a clear, measurable win. But more importantly, it was a safe win. It was auditable. It demonstrated the value of AI without exposing the county to risk. It turned the skeptics into believers. And that's a small victory built on solid foundation of data governance. This gave them the political capital and the organizational confidence to start exploring more complex use cases. They were no longer paralyzed by fear. They were enabled by a concrete strategy. The difference between an AI strategy and an AI wish list is a foundation of data sovereignty and governance. Without it, all you have are risky ideas. And ideas come from everywhere. People have all kinds of needs and ideas on how to use AI. So if you're a leader who wants to move from the blanket no to a series of smart strategic yeses, here's the question to ask your organization. Do we have a written, enforceable policy for data sovereignty? And do we have a real funded plan to move from a data swamp to a governed data asset? If the answer is no, or if it's I'm not sure, you need to build it. You need an AI readiness and data vision program that is exactly designed for this challenge. It should be a focused sprint where you work with your leadership to define your end state vision, establish your AI governance framework with the right guardrails, and identify those first safe, high-impact use cases that will build momentum for your organization. Remember, like any new software implementation, which is what AI implementations are, if there's a small failure and if you lose trust with your end users, they're never going to adopt to a bigger project or anything new. You don't have to be paralyzed by your data, and you don't have to sign away your control to get started with AI. If you want to build a real strategy that protects your organization and unlocks the future, you can reach out to me at any time. My details are on LinkedIn or on YouTube. So let's build your first yes case together. Thank you.